you can just like get a job and start working. Okay. But usually what happens is whenever you get a job and you start working there, there will be like some tools, some technologies which are kind of a bit advanced. Okay. Even if you are joining as a fresher, you'll be not able to learn it. Okay. Because when we joined, I remember it took us like around 1 year. Yeah, like around 1 year to learn Redux. That's like, to be honest, it took like us around 1 year to completely understand the architecture of Redux and to write the code in Redux. Okay. So that was the case, and that's the reason we are not including that in our like uh, our what you call courses. But we want to do it now, and we want to keep it like short and simple. As Salman said, right, we will be going with like a 20 80 20 rule. Okay, so we will be covering like 80% of the stuff in the 20% of the time. Like you will be just like learning 20% of the thing which can be used 80% of the time. Okay, even it can be any Redux project, whether it's like the project already exists, or if you want to kickstart a project using React, Angular, using Redux, then you can definitely do it after this workshop. So this workshop will be as like similar format through all our courses. What we'll be doing is we'll be just like going first will be there will be a theoretical session, then it will be you'll be having like kind of what you call uh, hands-on session where you can practice it, and if you have any questions you can ask. Okay, so let's not waste the time. Let's just like dive into it. And I even like yeah, I mean we even have that like in slides. Cool. So you don't need introduction. What is Access? Salman already said it. Okay. I mean, like we are doing like a lot of workshops and a lot of stuff you can see here. That's completely fine. Okay. Salman already said it. And if you are like from university and you want to invite us, you can invite us. You can just like either ping me or Salman. By seeing the calendar, we'll decide a date. Okay. So now coming to this, like what exactly we are planning to do in this, right? I mean, like you can see the title as big, writing production grade Redux application, Redux in React apps. You have saw that. But what is the overview of today's this thing? We even shared this on a message, but we want to dive a bit deeper into it and make you understand why today's like workshop is like really important. And today's workshop, just like if you're dedicating like today complete day, I mean like for the workshop is like kind of like till 12 o'clock, and after that if you're practicing it, I can guarantee that you will be kind of having like a pretty good knowledge in Redux, and you can use that knowledge in your current projects. And if you are planning to switch the jobs, then this knowledge will come into handy, because this is like not only about like covering Redux. We will be understanding how React, what are the gaps we have in React, and what are the alternatives to Redux and everything. Okay, so all the interview questions are answered here. So this will be like kind of what do you call intense session, intense 4 hour session where you'll be learning like a lot of stuff. Okay, so the first thing is we'll be learning about like what is importance of state management in JavaScript apps. Okay, so I mean like why exactly we need like state management. I mean like before going to why we need like state management, first let's understand what exactly state management. Okay, so that will be the first thing. The second thing is I will be talking about how Redux can be used in React to manage global state. See, if you see the first line, right, we are not saying importance of state management in like React apps. We are saying importance of state management in JavaScript apps. So it can be anything. It can be Angular, Vue.js, and all those things. But when you come to second point, we are like completely focusing on React, because most of the time we are using React nowadays, right? Because like React is pretty popular. The next thing will be like we'll be understanding the architecture of Redux. Then we'll be writing some code by using like Redux in a React app. So we'll be pushing like some boilerplate code. I mean, like whatever the code we have explained during the classes, during the access classes, right? I mean, like we build like some that e-commerce store, very simple one. We'll try to implement it, and I will even like give the demo of our like company's project. I mean, like where we are using Redux extensively, so that you'll be having like kind of idea how the things are working whenever you're using it like a very scalable project. Okay. So then we will be talking about setting up Redux tools in dev mode. If you, it's like kind of what do you call? This is like amazing stuff. You can see how you can do a time travel like at like particular action dispatch, what happened, what exactly changed, and what is the current state. All those things I'll be showing you that. And then we'll be talking about middleware in Redux. Why do we need like middleware? What exactly is middleware? if you have attended my node classes, right, you already know like what middleware does. It's like a similar concept in Redux as well. Okay, now when you talk about Redux is synchronous. If you want to make like a synchronous call in Redux, right, if you want to make a API call which gives you a promise, right, which will resolve in like certain point of time in future, how all these things will happen in Redux. Because whenever we talk about Redux, I'll show you the architecture. Okay, we usually use like a single object. Okay, but if you want to call functions, or if you want to make like asynchronous calls, how you can do that? Okay, we'll be talking about that. The next thing will be persisting a Redux store using Redux persist. There is like one library known as Redux persist, which helps us to build like offline first apps. Okay, so when you say offline first apps, this will be kind of much understandable if you're like working on React Native stuff. Okay, React Native or like mobile development stuff, or even on like web stuff. If you have worked on like PWA, whenever you want to open an app, it can be PWA or like web app or a mobile app. You want to persist some data. Okay, you don't have to what you call. Uh, you don't have to refresh the data again and again. For example, let's assume user information. Okay, user don't keep on changing the username, right? All this information can be persisted, but again, there is like a catch here. Is you might ask me, we can use like local storage, right? We can use local storage. Why do we need like Redux persist? That is the very big question which you'll get. See, I'll show you the advantage of using Redux persist. So once I show you that, then you'll be able to understand why do we need to use it. You have to do like very minimal stuff when you talk about Redux persist. You just need to add that in the store while configuring the store, and rest of the things it will take care. Okay, I'll be showing you that. Now, after that, right, if we have time, I'll just like give you introduction to Redux toolkit. So what is Redux toolkit and how Redux toolkit will make our life easier? Oops, once again. Yeah. So how our like Redux toolkit makes our life easier? We'll be talking about that. So this is the agenda of today's session. Okay, so this is like a kind of overview, and see the format of this workshop will be having like what you call probably like 30 minutes to 45 minutes one session. Then we will be having like a break of 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Okay, so at that time you can take time if you want to have snacks, you can have snacks, or you want to have breakfast, do it. But just like come back after 15 minutes. We'll be giving like sufficient breaks so that you can absorb the knowledge. Okay, we don't want to take this session like a complete session as a whole. We'll give you like 15 to 20 minutes break, like 2 to 3 breaks in between, so that it will be like much easier for you guys. Okay, cool. Now, so yeah, let me just change this. Yeah, so now this is a big question. I mean, like I can see what are the people who have filled the form, right? I mean, like there are like people from the older batches, there are people from full stack batches, there are people, some people from Java batches as well. And who are the actual target audience for this course, for this workshop, right? See, if you're talking about Redux, we usually use this in a front end. Okay, that's the first thing. So if you're working in front end, or like if you're aspiring to become a front end engineer or like a full stack engineer, you can be the one. The second thing is, if you want to truly understand how the Redux architecture working, you need to understand how React actually works, right? So that means you should at least know React. Now there might be people here who doesn't know React, right? Whose course is going on still, right? And there might be like people from outside. Correct. If you don't know React, I don't think that will serve you like a much value. Okay. But still, like going through this workshop will give you kind of hints like what will be the use of React and how React will be helpful. I mean like I don't say to leave the workshop, attend it. If you are like kind of interested, attend it. You will understand like bits and pieces, then you can reconnect back once we cover React. Okay. So this is the basic idea. Even if you have like very 6 months, yeah, 6 months of experience, even if it's like kind of training experience, that's fine. Until you have built like some projects, building like 1 or 2 projects would be completely fine. Yeah, Salman, you want to talk?
Yeah, so basically, guys, if you didn't learn the React also, you can understand the Redux. But what Tajamul is
True.
saying is, but you don't know the problem. Okay, you have a solution, but you don't know the problem. Why React doesn't solve that problem? Why we need Redux? That's what is the problem. Jafar, you might not know the React, but you will learn Redux without knowing the React. Also, you can learn the Redux because it is JavaScript and just functional programming. Okay, no need to worry about that one. If you don't know the React, also you can learn the Redux. But
Okay.
why we need to learn the Redux? That question is right. Why we learn to Redux? Why we need to add the Redux in the React app? there is some problem in the React. There is some not problem. There is some limitation in the React. So that one you will get to know once you learn the React. That is that these dots will be get connected once you learn the React, and once you learn the Redux, these dots will be get connected. But it's fine. To learn the Redux, just functional programming knowledge, like whatever we have learned in JavaScript, that is enough to learn the Redux. And second thing is, the people, some of them are learning Angular or or some of them working in the next Angular, any framework front end. Redux can be used along with that one, not only the React. Today we are demoing with the React and Redux, but Angular people also use Redux. Vue.js people also use Redux. So normal vanilla JavaScript code we have written, right? They also use the Redux for state management. So that is the two things I wanted to clear. So Jaffa, no need to leave. So be there, okay? Learn it. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Cool. Yeah. So as Salman said, that's the thing. Now, after target audience, I want to talk about importance of state management in JavaScript apps. See, state management, when you talk about like state management, right? I mean, like this looks a bit of jargon. Jargon is nothing but a technical term, right? When you talk about state management in JavaScript apps, first we have to understand what exactly is JavaScript application. Then we have to understand what is like state management, right? See, state management, we even had this problem very early when like we had this like different frameworks as Salman pointed out. We have this Angular, Vue.js, and you had like all these frameworks, libraries, whatever you call it as. Even at that particular moment also we had this state management problem, but they had their own native solution. For example, for Angular, they had like something known as two-way data binding inside it. Okay, so they literally didn't need like redux or like any state management, because internally they had that what you call one some sort of maintenance module where you can bind the data two ways, and you can just like you use something on this model in Angular, ng model, which will accomplish the task. Okay, so even though there was like a concept of state management at that time, but they were like not actively using it, or like they were like not actively focusing on state management. The word state management was not that much popular when we had like this Angular JS. Okay, I'm talking about like Angular JS one. But when they introduced like React, when this Facebook introduced React, we there was like something missing. See, whenever we talk about Angular JS, right? Angular JS, Vue JS, Aurelia JS, all these are like completely full-fledged frameworks. Okay, when you talk about frameworks, you have like certain way to do certain things. Okay, for example, if you want to call a API call, then you have to create like some file inside some folder in Angular JS. That's how you have to do it. If you want to do like if you want to create like one page, then you need to create like two file in like MVVM architecture. Like first you have to create like a model file, then you have to create like a view file. View file will be your HTML file, model file will be your JavaScript file. This is the architecture of Angular. That's how you have to do, because they have already predefined it. Okay, if you had like this view file, there should be some sort of controller controlling it. Okay, there should be like some model where from where the data getting populated. So this is how the things, whenever we talk about framework, that's what we are like talking about. You have like complete solution for certain problem. You don't have to rely on external dependencies most of the time. Okay, for like routing, you have like this ng route. For like two-way data binding, we have like ng model. All these things we have. Okay, but when we talk about libraries such as React, okay, what happens is, even if you go to like Vue.js, okay, Vue.js has their own solution known as Vuex. Okay, that is like for state management. But when you talk about like React application, right, here it's just like it's not a framework, but it's a library. It's a library. Now what React is solving is it's solving the problem of building user interfaces. You want to build like what you call optimistic performant user interfaces, you can do that, but all the things will be not possible. For example, if you want like routing in React, like client side routing or like a single page application routing, that is not possible in React, right? You have to install React router ROM, right? If you want to do like some sort of state management, that is also not possible in React. For that you have to use we have like a lot of state management libraries such as Redux, Mobix, Jotai, Recoil. You have to use all those things. That's the major difference. Okay, so we even had like a different frameworks at that moment. Also we had like state management. Okay, there might be like different libraries with pretty older libraries which are deprecated now, which I am not aware of. They might had those, but people were like not that much interested, because those framework didn't create like any problem. Okay, I'm not saying like React is creating a problem. That is like one gap. Okay, even without using state management, you can build the apps. But we will be seeing. Okay, I mean like. Salman will be explaining in like one slide why do we need that, why do we not. That's the whole idea. Okay, now what exactly is state management? Okay, let's talk about that for a while. See, when you talk about like state management, it's nothing but like state of an application. For example, you have logged in. Okay, you have this user data, you have this like consider this e-commerce application as itself. Okay, you have this car data, you have this user data. You need to store the data somewhere. Okay, you need to store the data somewhere so that it is accessible across all the all complete application, right? For example, you might be calling like user data in the profile details, and if you want to access the same data in like some other page, you can't do that. You have to call the API, right? So if you want to avoid making like API calls, but you just need to store the data somewhere, you can do that. Where we can do it, we can store in like local storage or like index DB in like what you call this thing. But the problem with that is, again, the problem with that approach is that is like too much expensive. Okay, you can't rely on like a browser storage. Okay, so here like state management comes into picture where it creates like a just like global what do you call object, a big object in a memory, and it will store all the application data there. You'll be having like a user data as well, you'll be having like card data as well. We'll be seeing that. Okay, don't worry about it. I mean like I don't want to go much deeper. That's the advantage. Like state management is nothing but you have like data, and you should be able to access the data from anywhere in the app. Okay, so that's the whole idea. And like why state management got popular during React time was React had that issue. Okay, so what is that issue? We'll be talking about that. Now there might be like some arguments as well. Why do you need to use like this and that? Everything will be answered. So just like be patient. Okay, so now coming to the state management libraries. So you understood like what exactly is state management. Now coming to what all the options we have, right? Now, if you saw the title of the workshop, we are saying like writing production grade Redux. Redux. Just focus on that word. We are saying like Redux in React apps, but we are not saying right like even like in Flux or MobX, Jotai, Recoil, just stand. We are not saying that. Why we are like focusing on Redux, not like on other stuff. See, the first thing is when Facebook introduced React, right, and they introduced like some architecture. Okay, that was like not external library. That was just like internal architecture, and they had like even like that documentation. You can just like go and search for Flux architecture in React. Okay, see what Flux architecture does is Flux. If you want to maintain like state, they also have like a similar architecture. Flux architecture where you had like this something known as action dispatcher. You have to register the stuff. uh, that was like making the things a bit complex. Okay, I mean like even if you want to understand the stuff, you can understand those things. But things are getting a bit complex. People were not able to understand, developers were not able to understand. This is the kind of architecture to manage the state by Facebook initially. Okay, you can like this is like one of the what do you call this is like one of the interview question. They might ask what is the Flux architecture in React. You can tell like Flux architecture was like an initial architecture by Facebook to manage the state. Okay, that's the answer for that. But like after seeing the complexity of the Flux, there was like this guy known as like Dan Abramov, and like there are like two other co-creators. They introduced something known as Redux. Now, what actually Redux does is Redux take like inspiration from Flux, but it avoids like a lot of complexity. For example, in Flux, you can create like multiple stores. Okay, I mean again, I will talk about the technical stuff a bit later, but just to make you understand, Flux creates like a lot of complexity. That all the complexity was kind of filtered out in Redux. Okay, and they created like a very pretty simple stuff. Even though that's like pretty simple, it's kind of pretty hard. I'll tell you why. Okay, now this is the moment. I mean like when we are talking about like state management libraries, right? We had this Flux, but our Flux was kind of a bit harder. People were kind of skeptical to adapt it. After that, like Redux, we got like Redux, and Redux was like much more simpler and understandable compared to Flux. Now this point, when like they introduced Redux, right, and at that particular time it was kind of peak of React as well. Okay, so there were like a lot of people adopting React, but they were like facing problems state management. Now they don't want to go with like Flux, they have like alternative known as Redux. Okay, so this was the booming time when like a lot of applications were built, and most of people, the common stack for the people were they were using React with Redux. Okay, See, you have this thing, right? I mean, like, if, when in a market, if some products come into first at purchase first, they will acquire like a lot of what you call customers, right? Even though there might be like a lot of better options later, you'll be getting like a lot of better options later, but still, people go with that first product. Why? Because they believe it. Because initially they launched it. That's the reason they believe it. This product has the potential. Okay, so that's what happened during the Redux time as well. When the Redux launched and like people started to adopt it, it became like kind of what you call company standard. It's like kind of what you call ecosystem standard. Whenever like people are talking about React, people will definitely talk about Redux. So that was the peak point. After that, we got like even like a lot of alternatives to manage the state. For example, we had like Mobix. Mobix is like an excellent library, which is like much easier than Redux. Then recently we have like Jotai, Recoil, Sustain. Now the amazing part here is all this solves the similar problem, same problem to manage the state, but they have like different architecture. I don't want to go much deeper into like other things, although we know like Mobix and Sustain. I don't want to go into it because we want to focus on Redux, and I'll tell you like why we are exactly focusing on Redux as well. Okay, and now one thing I just like want to make like one point here. See this, you can see this Recoil, right? Recoil is also a library by Facebook. Okay, Recoil is also a state management library by Facebook. This is like one question you need to understand. Why, even though if you know React, right? Facebook introduced something known as context API, correct? A lot of people, I mean, like we completely agree, right? Since we have context, this is a kind of even like a debate, correct? Since we have a context API, why do we need like Redux? Yes or no? Like most of us like think like that, right? We have the context API. Why do we need like Redux? You
Yes.
people, yeah. Okay, I mean like yeah, only one person thinks like that. And what about others? You people don't think like that. Okay, that's completely fine. See, this is the kind of what you call debatable question. Since we have context API, why do we need Redux? See, they introduced this context API, and even though they introduced context API, after introducing context API, like a lot of people started to argue, like since we have context API, we don't need like external dependencies such as Redux. But even context API doesn't have that much flexibility what like Redux offers. Okay, that's the reason they wanted to ship a new state management library. They shipped like Recoil. Okay, there is the answer for that. Now, why you have to learn Redux? I mean, like that's the another question, right? I mean, like you have like a lot of other libraries. Why you need to learn Redux? See, the first thing is from a job perspective, you will be having like a lot of demand when you learn Redux. Why learn Redux? As I said earlier, even though there are like a lot of great libraries out there, since like Redux was the initial one to pitch and get a like lot of developers on the ecosystem, people trust Redux. Okay, people trust Redux because it's reliable, it's predictable. Even though we have to write like a lot of code compared to Zastan, Recoil, Jotai, Mobix in Redux, but still people like trust Redux. You might be having like 5 years of experience in like front end development, you might be an excellent developer in React. You might have like open source, like you have contributed open source, okay, in the to the open source, and you have like done like excellent commits. You might have like spoke in conferences, but you don't know Redux, right? It's kind of pretty hard to get like a front-end developer job because I have seen this, and when I usually interview people, right, I usually ask the same thing. Okay, there are like a lot of people who doesn't know Redux. Why they just like resist it? Okay, I mean we'll be talking about that later. So that's the one thing. So now the next question we need to answer is why do we need like state management in React app? Can someone tell me like why do we need like state management? I mean like why are exactly we are doing today's workshop? Any idea?
Okay, so Tejamul, we can ask them like how many of you are like how many of you are using the Redux in their project? At least
Yeah,
raise the hand. Okay, Akhil. No worries.
cool. I think Salman, you are the right person to yeah go ahead and ask the questions. Oh, there are a
Okay,
lot of Redux users here.
okay. And let's ask Irshad. Irshad, can you like tell me like why you're using the Redux in your app?
Yeah, hi Salman.
Hi, Irshad.
When we start using React, it is when a project becomes complex, it is very difficult to manage the state, means manage the
Mm,
data at one place, and moving the
mm,
data from one component to another component is like prop drilling, that becomes difficult in a complex application. So we
Mm-hmm.
start using
Exactly.
React,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, Redux, and we can pass the
Mm-hmm.
data from there to any component.
Oh, for that one, we have an context, right? You have you heard of context API?
Yes, Salman.
So we can do that one, pass it drilling. The prop drilling can be avoided using the uh, context API also easily. It is like in the React only. If you just wanted to like pass the data from one component to another component and to manage the state, same thing, the context also provides that one, prop drilling. Passing the data from one component to another component without the prop, wrap it in the provider and consume it anywhere. Whichever the component you want to consume, could it consume. And whatever the state you wanted to store in a global level, you can store it in the provider. Correct.
Correct.
So yeah, so what makes Redux unique? Like what comes to like state management in the React? That's my question. See, don't take it personal level. So like we wanted to make it interactive, right? This is like how the in interview they will ask. That is the reason I'm like asking. Ume,
I
Yes,
completely
yes,
agree
Salman.
with what you call what Irshad said, but I even like agree with like Salman's point, since we have like context, since like Irshad mentioned like one point, right? Prop drilling. Because of prop drilling itself, like React introduces context API, correct? Then why do we need like Redux in the first place? We can use context itself, right? Yes, Umar, go ahead. You were saying
Asif,
something.
Umer or Asif. Guys, like this is a
Yeah.
brainstorming session, okay? Workshop things like it is not like we are coming and we deliver the lecture and we leave. So yeah, Umer, like what makes like difference? Why can't we use context? Why we need a state management like other libraries? So
Because
according to our experience, yeah.
because context API is used for sharing like small pieces of state between components. Like if there are less state, we need to use. But if there are more, where application is using more number large states, and also we can go with Redux. It is much more powerful, and we can have handy features
Mhm.
that context API doesn't have.
Yeah, I agree with your points, like small pieces of data. Okay, but I want technical definition. Okay, fine, but yeah, Akhil, just wanted to, yeah, servant. Yeah, you wanted to say, yeah, you raise the hand, man. Shravan.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, you are raising the hand now. Tell me.
Yeah, bro. Code is less, and in Redux will create one state to store the data. Whereas in
Hmm.
context API, wherever we need to use the data, we need to write the entire code for the to store that data.
Shravan,
In
you
this
I
case,
think you misunderstood the question. You're like answering for like what is the difference between Redux and context. What Salman is asking is why do we need like Redux in the first place when we can use context?
for this only, bro, we'll create a
Hmm.
Redux state, and we can use entire application wherever we need. Whereas
Hmm.
context API is also like that only, but compared to this, in a single shade we have the entire data, but in context API,
Okay, so okay, so
very
basically, you are saying that one. No, that is not correct way of like remembering the context and Redux. Like, see, it is not about the code, it is not about the performance, or it is not about the other things. So they have some unique things in Redux. Okay, in the coming slide we will get to know. But why state management in React app is very much important is, have you heard React is a in React the data is unidirectional flow. Have
Yes,
you heard
yes,
yes,
this one
yeah.
definition anywhere in the React? So basically, what what does it means? For example, you are defining the state in some of the component and you are like passing the data to the child component or somewhere, right? And assume that state you have mutated that state, okay, and you want to synchronize that state all over the place. For example, take an example of Flipkart My Account page, okay? You'll go to Flipkart My Account page and you will change your username. For example, you will change your username to something like Shravan Reddy is there, you will make Shravan something K Reddy. Okay, that should reflect in everywhere in the application. Okay, and whatever the past transactions you have made, past invoices if you download, there also the name should change, and in the future also it should change. Okay, in the present state also it should change. So how that state synchronization you will achieve is, you can't achieve using the React. You need to refresh it, or you need to call the APIs, or you need to make manually like a lot of callbacks and a lot of loops, lot of like it will become like a recursion type. So with the help of state management, right? So you will store the state in a central repository, one particular repository, one place you will store the state, and that state is accessible throughout the application. So any component or any screen can access that state. So you update only one place that will reflect in each and every pages and everywhere. So that we call as a store. You have heard this one, stores, right? So that I'm not going to the technical words. I'm just saying that this is the way, because in React the data is unidirectional flow. To avoid this unidirectional flow, we wanted to synchronize the data, synchronize the states. So that's the way we need a state management, and we want the predictable state, means we want to predict like each and every step that what is happening. So that is the reason we need a state management in the React. Okay, so a lot of things are
And one
there.
more thing is like, yeah, sorry, Salman. So one more thing is, see, as Salman mentioned, that I just want to elaborate that point. That what do you call the debugging part, and plus, although we will be covering this in, I will be showing you that the debugging part and the tracking part plus time traveling part, it will be like much easier. You might be have like called the API, but you don't have to. See, you have called the API, you got the data. Okay. But before calling the API, what was the exact state? You want to know that. You don't have to call the API to check that, but you can just do the time travel. You can just like reverse the action. How you can do that, we'll be showing you that in DevTools and all those things. These are like kind of pro mode of like Redux. You can just like
Yeah, I
see,
think,
install this Redux extension and you can do it. Okay. Yes, Anil, go ahead.
yeah, I think next slide, Vimal, we have that one. Yeah, so this is like how Redux helps in the React apps. Same thing, like I said, right? Touchable maybe in the next slide.
Yeah, so and like one more part is like for the before slide, right? Where exactly we'll be using React. I'll show you a like kind of flow diagram. We'll be just like drawing a diagram and I'll show you like what are the problems we'll be facing and whether the Redux is like a right choice to use it or not. Cool. So these are pros which like Salman was talking about. So the first thing is why to use like Redux and React apps. So make data flow transparent and predictable. Okay. So we have just like made a typo there. It's like predictability. It should be predictable. See, when we talk about like predictable data flow, transparent, predictable, we will exactly get to know what was like earlier state. Earlier state in the sense is, see, when we talk about state, we are not talking like anything what do you call complex here. When we talk about state, just like consider it as an object. Okay, that's it. You will be understanding what was the previous object, now what exactly is the object, and what is the difference between like these two objects. Okay, so the data flow will be kind of transparent, predictable. We exactly know, okay, after like dispatching this action or like after calling this function, this will change and the difference will look like this. Okay, and how to reverse and see the difference, we can even check that. Okay, and the second point, which like even like Salman mentioned, see, we have like synchronization of data across the app. So usually what happens is there might be like one piece of data which is kind of used in like multiple places, okay, multiple pages or like multiple components. And when that particular piece of data changes, all those components should be re-rendered with like a new data. Okay, this should happen. Now to achieving this, you can just like use Redux to just like and connect your all the components to the central store, and whenever the data changes, automatically re-render. But if you want to achieve the same thing using just like React, again you have to do like a lot of circus there. Okay, you have to do like prop drilling, you have to attach contexts, all the stuff. Then one more advantage is like, again, we covered this. So you'll be knowing how to debug, where to debug, when to debug, and like why, if there is some issue, if there is like some issue which is happening, you'll completely able to understand why the issue is happening, and after like which call or like after like what do you call, after like what dispatch that issue happened, that issue occurred. Okay, now we'll be even like seeing that. I mean, like I can show you like a ready-made application. I mean, like I can show you, demo you like my company's application itself. Okay, So what are the disadvantage? Okay, I mean, like, even if we say, we can't say this is a disadvantage. Like, a lot of people resist to learn what you call Redux, or like a lot of people resist to use Redux. Why people use like resist to use Redux, or like why people say no to Redux? Okay, whenever you just like go to some person and say, let's use Redux, and like their initial reaction will be like not that much good. You can't. They will not say yes right away. They'll say, okay, let's think about it. If the need arises, we'll be using it. Okay, something like this. Now, why that happens is because whenever you talk about like writing code in Redux, it has like a lot of boilerplate code. Okay, see, even just to make a single API call, you have to write like a single one action. You have to write like a reducer. You have to write a middleware. But if you want to make the same API call in just like a plain JavaScript code or like React code, you'll be just using like fetch or Axios, right? Axios.get, just like put the URL, handle the promise using either async commit or like .temp.catch. That's like pretty easy. Okay, but if you want to achieve the similar thing in Redux, you have to like a lot of circus. Okay, I mean, like, it's not circus. You have to change in like a lot of places, and during some time that will get boring. Okay, now, doing like all those changes in like certain places, initially it will feel like that is like pretty much complex, because if you want to make a one API call, first you have to write a proper action of for that. You have to like integrate middleware such as Thunk. Then you need to make like a synchronous call. After getting the response, you have to make like a success dispatch or like a failure dispatch. Doing all these things will feel like it's kind of a bit complicated. Okay, so that's like complexity. But as I said earlier, most of the companies look for the candidates who know Redux. Even you might be having like 1 year of experience or 10 years of experience. Go and read the JD of any company for front end engineer role. Okay, you can go and like create the JDs of like most product based companies. Either if you want to go into startup, go into startup. Either you want to go into like product based MNCs, go into product based MNCs. Read the JD for the front end roles, okay, which they are using React. Their either thing will be like React with Redux, TypeScript, less SCSS. All these are like kind of the new stuff which they are using, okay. Or they'll be using like Next.js, TypeScript plus Redux. These will be the things, but Redux will be kind of common, okay. Nowadays, like TypeScript also is like getting common, okay. TypeScript, yeah, we even have like workshop for that, so don't worry about it. It will be like much easier. Just give me a second, guys. One second.
Any question, guys, so far? Ishad, I think you are speaking, but I didn't heard like any questions.
No, Salman.
Okay. So yeah, there is like another thing I wanted to say is, right, some of the candidates will learn the Redux. Okay, they try to add the Redux everywhere. Okay, not only like, see, that is also one of the bad thing. Okay, if I ask them to write a counter application, they will add Redux. If they ask them to do application, they will use Redux. If they want to, for the static application also, they will add the Redux. That is a bad way of using the Redux. Okay, so just use it when it is needed. Yeah, yeah, Tajama.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Now coming to when to use Redux and when to avoid it. Okay. So Salman, yeah, you're talking about it, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I see. If your application is a static, no need to use the Redux. And your UI is not that much complex. For example, you're working on the big applications, right? So as Tajamul is applying, Tajamul will give the demo of his product, okay? He's using the big application, right? And there is a lot of UI step and there is a lot of state management in the UI. Then we need to use. You will get to know, right? Just you wanted to build an tool like a to do a kind of an application, some e-commerce application, right? Some simple e-commerce application. The person will come and he will order, you will add to the cart and they will get and check out and place the order. For this one, we don't need a state management, to be honest. If your application
Hmm.
is just this much simple, we don't need a state management library. We can utilize the React context and we can manage the only one or two states global level. For example, user authentication token or like user ID, and we can manage the app. Okay. But if you have a complex UIs, lot of pages are there, lot of state management thing is there we need to use the Redux. But what the developers will do, right? For simple application, they will add this Redux. Okay, they will make it as a complex. Okay, so yeah, as Tajamul has added point, right? Don't over engineer like Redux because you know Redux. Just there's a quote, right?
See,
A
usually
man with
what
a hammer.
happens, right? Again,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, Salman. Sorry. See, usually what happens, right? I mean, like, even if you want to build a to-do, we will think like what are the technologies I know. So, for example, I know TypeScript, I know Next.js, I know what you call, what you call
Redux,
Redux. Yeah, I know
GraphQL.
Redux. I know GraphQL. Let's put everything just to build to-do. Why you want to use like all those kind of stuff? To-do is like a very simple application, guys. You just have to use like React. That's it. That's it. That is completely fine. You're using user authentication, just like user context. That's fine. And as like this is this what you call quote suggested me to put by Salman, to man with a hammer everything looks like a nail. You suppose like you have a
Yeah.
hammer and you will
Hmm.
think like everything is a nail. Where should I use it?
Hit.
So similar thing, you might know Redux and you always keep on thinking, okay, where can I add like a dependency as Redux? Don't do that. Okay.
Because this I explained, there was junior, like, okay, there were the two juniors in my previous organization. They were like coming to me and always saying that why you didn't add a Redux? Redux is easy. Just because they know Redux, they are forcing everyone to learn the Redux, they're forcing to add the Redux in all the application. Don't do like that, okay? So think when you're architecting application, think about the UI. If the UI is complex, use the state management library. If the UI is very simple, don't use the state management library. So it depend upon the project, depend upon the, and it will be like costlier also, right? Assume that you're building to-do application. I'm just giving an example, okay? For example, some project management tool like a Trello, okay? For that one, if you add a lot of state management libraries, like, and you will make the project complex and performance also increases. Not that much good, okay? Performance also decreases. So those are the things we need to focus, okay? So yeah, this is more about that one, like when to use, when not to use. If the application is not that much complex, simple UI, don't use any statement library. Use the context. Okay, and if your application is a complex and we are scaling that application, there is a lot of state management problem is there. Then you need to add you go with the statement library. So yeah, that is about like when
And
to
like
use
one
and
more
when not
thing,
to use.
right? This is Salman, I think here like one more point. This might look subjective,
Mhm.
but as like everyone grows here as engineer, right? There will be like some point in time in the future you might be an engineer leader, okay, engineering leader, or like you might be a tech lead of some team. At
Mhm.
particular time, you should have this understanding or this ability to judge whether to use what. It's not like you might be the tech lead, you might be knowing with like a lot of stuff. It's not like you are enforcing the team to learn everything and use it. No, that is not necessary, right? If you are
Mhm.
able to build like a what you call a simple application using the existing tools, that's completely fine. What user will never ask you like whether you have built that application using React, Redux, or PHP. They will never ask you. They just need when they hit the form to submit, it should get and stored in the database. That's it. Whether you are using PHP, React, Redux, or Java, Rails, that doesn't matter. Okay, so you as you grow as an engineer, as you get like more experience, be thoughtful of that as well. Okay, so you need to understand what exactly you're passing to your juniors. So,
And that is one of the most important interview question. Why you are using the Redux, when to use, when not to use. This will be the definitely interview question if you're changing the company or if you're giving an interview. Okay, they will ask when to use the Redux, when not to use the Redux. See, it is not about the learning the lot of technologies, right? It is the way we need to use it. Okay, so that is the main important thing. We need to like have an okay.
cool. So yeah, let's move forward. Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm not able to view this or what. Yeah, you can see here, right? You can see this.
I will share in the chat to them.
You have that link, or do you want to share it?
Yeah, I
See,
will
this
share
is
it.
this is like one of the blog or like one of the blog written by the actual Redux creator itself. Now he is only saying like when we might not to use Redux. His title is, you can see, you might not need it Redux. Okay, he has written this in like September 2016. Okay, this guy actually created Redux. Okay, Dan Abramov with like he had like one more co-creator, and after that Facebook actually hired him. Okay, so he's now like engineer at Facebook, like working on the React core team. So you just like read this, and this is like a very good article. And whenever like someone says right on a simple application to use Redux, just send them this article, then they will understand. No, again, no, it's not like we are not saying we are here. We are like not saying to not to use Redux. We're saying be kind of thoughtful of where you want to